The industry is trembling once again, and this time, Jaguar Wright isn't holding anything back. In her latest revelation, she exposes how 50 Cent's chilling warning sent shockwaves through the hip-hop world, leaving Jim Jones' reputation hanging by a thread. It's not just another feud or diss track. This is about secrets that were never meant to surface. About the hidden deals, the unspoken threats, and the quiet destruction that follows when someone crosses the wrong line. Jaguar claims 50 Cent's words weren't random, they were calculated, deliberate, and backed by information only insiders would know. Behind every lyric and interview, there's a coded message, a warning to anyone watching closely. Jim Jones, once celebrated for his loyalty and hustle, now finds himself at the center of a web of whispers and allegations that threaten to unravel everything he's built. And according to Jaguar, the truth is much darker than the public realizes. This isn't just about music. It's about control, exposure, and the dangerous power of truth in a world that thrives on secrets. 50 Cent's warning, Jaguar says, wasn't a joke hit, was the start of a chain reaction. The walls are closing in, and the players who thought they were untouchable are finally being exposed. Stay tuned, because what's coming next could shatter the illusion of power that's kept the hip-hop world silent for far too long. Jaguar Wright's latest revelation has the music industry buzzing once again, this time targeting one of hip-hop's most complex rivalries, the fallout between 50 Cent and Jim Jones. Her words are sharp, unapologetic, and packed with the kind of insight that only someone who has been on the inside could have. According to Jaguar, 50 Cent's so-called warning to Jim Jones wasn't just a diss, was a calculated move that exposed the cracks in the foundation of an image Jim had spent years building. To understand the magnitude of what Jaguar is talking about, you have to go back to the beginning, when the relationships, rivalries, and power plays of New York's rap scene were still taking shape. Jim Jones rose to fame as part of the Diplomats, better known as Dips, San alongside Cameron and Joel Santana. Their music defined an era. Harlem was their kingdom and loyalty was their code. But like most stories in the rap game, success came with politics. As Dipset's fame grew, so did the tension with other camps, especially those aligned with different power circles in the industry. 50 Cent, coming from Queens, had already made a name for himself as a man who mixed street realism with business strategy. He wasn't just a rapper. He was a tactician who used beef as a marketing weapon. Every feud elevated his brand, and every rival he crushed became another warning to anyone who thought about crossing him. According to Jaguar Wright, what the world saw as rap beef was actually a coded exchange between two men who knew exactly what was at stake. 50 Cent's warning to Jim Jones wasn't about clout. It was about exposure. She claims that 50 had knowledge of certain behind-the-scenes dealings involving Jim. Connections that tied into deeper industry networks that few talk about publicly. When 50 spoke, it wasn't bluster. It was a signal. And everyone in the inner circles knew exactly what it meant, Jaguar says. Jim Jones' fear wasn't about losing credibility with fans, it was about losing protection. In an industry where reputations are currency and alliances can save or destroy a career, being called out by someone like 50 Cent means more than a lyrical jab. It means someone is about to open a door that was meant to stay locked. 50 Cent has built his legacy not only on hit records but on an uncanny ability to expose weakness. Every time he's warned someone, it's been followed by a chain reaction, rumors, receipts, and sometimes complete reputational collapse. Jaguar describes the situation as a turning point. She says that once 50's words hit the air, certain people began to distance themselves from Jim Jones. The calls stopped coming. The collaborations dried up. The same people who once called him brother began avoiding his name altogether. According to her, this wasn't coincidence, it was orchestration. 50 Cent's warning was a message to the industry. If you're with him, you're against me. And in a business where power determines survival, no one wanted to be on the wrong side of 50 Cent. But Jaguar takes it further. She insists that there was more to 50's knowledge than anyone dared to acknowledge publicly. She hints at deals, hidden hands, and silent players who've been pulling strings for years. She claims Jim Jones got too close to certain operations connections that might have blurred the lines between music, street influence, and something much bigger. 50 Cent, ever the strategist, used that knowledge as leverage. Knowing the right words spoken at the right time could dismantle an entire image. For Jaguar, this moment wasn't just about two rappers clashing. It was about exposing how power truly works in hip-hop. She argues that the industry thrives on secrets. The most successful figures aren't necessarily the most talented. They're the ones who understand the rules of control, who to align with, who to fear, and who to keep quiet. When those rules are broken, consequences follow. And Jim Jones, in her telling, broke one of the biggest rules of all. He underestimated how deep 50 Cent's influence really runs. The aftermath of that warning was quiet at first. No public response, no direct diss track, just silence. But in the world Jaguar describes, silence is often the loudest response. Behind closed doors, alliances shifted, reputations eroded. And the people once loyal to Jim began protecting their own names. Wright says that Jim's fear wasn't about confrontation, it was about exposure. The kind of exposure that ends careers not through violence or gossip, but through truth. Jaguar's perspective paints a haunting picture. A world where every friendship is conditional. Every deal has strings, and every warning from someone like 50 Cent is a prelude to destruction. It wasn't just that Jim Jones was being called out, it was that he was being cornered. And once 50 Cent marks you, it's not about fighting back. It's about surviving the storm that follows, as Jaguar puts it. 50 doesn't just talk, he triggers consequences. And in the case of Jim Jones, that single warning might have been the moment when the empire he built began to crumble from the inside. Jaguar Wright didn't just tell a story about two rappers trading shots. She exposed an entire system of power, control, and silent punishment that operates behind the glitz of hip-hop. In her words, 50 Cent's warning to Jim Jones wasn't a random public taunt. It was a deliberate strike designed to trigger consequences without ever needing to lift a finger. She painted a picture of an industry where reputations are currency, secrets are leverage, and fear is the ultimate weapon. According to Jaguar, the real story begins with 50 Cent's rise from street survivor to corporate mogul. He learned early on that information is more dangerous than any weapon, and he used it to dominate his rivals. Every feud he's ever engaged in, from Ja Rule to Rick Ross, wasn't just about pride. It was about dismantling the image of those who challenged him. When he turned his attention toward Jim Jones, Jaguar says it wasn't out of jealousy or pettiness. It was because 50 had seen something or heard something that could not be ignored. Jaguar claims that certain figures in the music industry have long been involved in activities that blur the line between business and criminal enterprise. Money laundering, fake partnerships, exploitation of younger artists, all hidden under the cover of record deals and promotions. She insists that 50 Cent has always had eyes and ears in every corner of the business, and that when he spoke about Jim Jones, he was speaking with knowledge, not speculation. He wasn't guessing, Jaguar said. He was reminding everyone that he knows where the bodies are buried. Once 50 Cent dropped his cryptic remarks, Jaguar says the chain reaction began. Industry executives started asking questions. Old associates distanced themselves. People who once protected Jim Jones suddenly went quiet. According to Jaguar, that was by design. 50 doesn't need to destroy someone directly. He exposes just enough truth to make everyone else do the job for him. The label executives don't want attention, the sponsors don't want controversy, and the media loves a downfall. That's how reputations die in the modern industry, not with violence, but with silence and strategic isolation. Jaguar also spoke about how this warning intersected with a deeper culture of intimidation. In her view, the hip-hop world runs like an underground economy. There are hierarchies, codes, and unspoken agreements that bind artists, executives, and street figures together. Everyone owes someone something. When an artist like Jim Jones steps outside that order, whether through arrogance, defiance, or ignorance, there's always a consequence. Jaguar believes that 50 Cent's warning was the spark that reminded the entire industry of who really holds the power to expose. For Jim Jones, the fallout was subtle but devastating. He didn't lose his fans overnight, but he lost control of his image. Rumors started spreading, some about business dealings, others about loyalty, and still others about personal contradictions. People began questioning his authenticity, his alliances, and his credibility. Jaguar argues that this is exactly what 50 intended, not to end Jim Jones' career in one blow, but to make him unravel slowly under the pressure of public doubt and internal paranoia. Jaguar went further, describing how fear spreads through the industry after moments like this. She says artists begin to check themselves, make fewer bold statements, and stay quiet even when they know the truth. The ones who stay silent are rewarded. The ones who speak out are erased. It's an invisible system of control where a single warning from a powerful voice like 50 Cent becomes a message to everyone else. Stay in your place. She also connected the dots between this incident and broader industry patterns. Jaguar believes that 50's warning wasn't just about Jim Jones. It was about exposing the alliances that many rappers maintain with people behind the curtain. She claims there are managers, investors, and corporate players who use rappers as fronts for laundering money and manipulating influence. When an artist like 50 Cent speaks out, even indirectly, those shadows start to shift. The people hiding in them start to panic, and sometimes to survive. They sacrifice the very artists they once built up. Jim Jones, according to Jaguar, became collateral damage in that process. Once his reputation began to falter, those same connections that once lifted him up began to pull away. He was left to defend himself publicly, while the people who truly knew the truth hid behind contracts and NDAs. Jaguar describes it as industry exile, a punishment more painful than any public because it strips away your power while letting you appear to still be free. Her account forces a hard question. How much of hip-hop's success is authentic? And how much is carefully manufactured by unseen forces who control the narrative? Jaguar argues that authenticity is dangerous. The more honest you are, the more you threaten those who profit from lies. That's why figures like 50 Cent thrive, 'cause they understand that fear can control more people than fame ever could. By the end of Jaguar's second revelation, a grim picture emerges. The so-called warning was not about music. It was a reminder that power in this industry doesn't belong to those on the stage, but to those who can manipulate what happens off it. Jim Jones' reputation wasn't destroyed overnight. It was dismantled, piece by piece, by an invisible system that punishes defiance and rewards silence. And through it all, Jaguar insists 50 Cent never needed to say much. He just had to make it known that he was watching on. That was enough to make the walls start closing in. Jaguar Wright's revelations in the final part of her account dig even deeper, stripping away the last layer of illusion that surrounds the feud between 50 Cent and Jim Jones. What began as a public warning, she claims, evolved into a quiet, calculated dismantling of reputation and influence, an orchestrated process that shows just how ruthless the hip-hop power structure can be when it decides someone's time is up. According to Jaguar, the destruction of Jim Jones' image wasn't spontaneous or accidental. It was the result of a system that protects its secrets through humiliation, exposure, and silence. Jaguar explains that in the world of entertainment, public image is more valuable than truth. The industry thrives on perception. Once that perception starts to crumble, no amount of money or charisma can save you. 50 Cent understands this better than anyone. His genius, Jaguar says, lies not in his music or business acumen alone, but in his ability to manipulate public narrative. He knows that in this digital era, reputation can be destroyed without evidence, only suggestion. A single comment, a cryptic post, a subtle jab can plant doubt in millions of minds. Once that doubt spreads, it becomes irreversible. Jim Jones, once celebrated for his street credibility and loyalty, suddenly found those very qualities questioned. People began revisiting his old interviews, his alliances, and even his lyrics, looking for inconsistencies. 50 Cent didn't have to expose every secret. He simply made people curious enough to investigate. And that curiosity became poison. Jaguar says this was the brilliance of the move. 50 Cent didn't need to tell the world what he knew. He just needed to make them wonder. Behind the scenes, Jaguar describes a deeper unraveling. She claims Jim's relationships with certain power players began to deteriorate after 50's warning. Executives who once promised him support became distant. Brand deals that were in progress suddenly disappeared. People who had nothing to do with the feud began choosing sides not out of loyalty, but out of fear. No one wanted to be associated with someone marked by 50 Cent's shadow. According to Jaguar, this kind of isolation is how careers are destroyed in the industry. What confrontation? But with quiet exclusion, Wright also sheds light on what she calls the unseen politics of hip-hop, a structure that operates parallel to the music itself. There are the songs, the tours, and the fame the public sees. But there's also an invisible network of investors, fixers and silent gatekeepers who manage reputations, pay off scandals, and determine who gets to stay relevant. When 50 Cent sent his message, Jaguar believes he was leveraging that very network. His reputation for exposing hidden truths made others act before he even needed to. They distanced themselves from Jim Jones preemptively, afraid of being implicated in something larger. Jaguar's account paints Jim as a man trapped in a cycle of image and influence. Once loyal to the system, he may have underestimated how quickly it can turn on its own. She claims that Jim's attempts to defend himself through interviews, social media posts, and bravado only made things worse. Every word was dissected, every statement twisted. The more he tried to fight back, the deeper the perception of guilt became. That's how the system works, Jaguar said. It doesn't have to prove you wrong. It just has to make people believe you're hiding something. As the situation unfolded, Jaguar suggests that Jim Jones' silence in the face of 50 Cent's later comments wasn't cowardice, it was resignation. He understood that fighting back would only feed the machine. The damage was already done. His name had become associated with something toxic, something unspeakable, even if no one could define what it was. And in the entertainment industry, implication alone is enough to destroy a man. Jaguar's deeper message, K, goes beyond Jim Jones and 50 Cent. She uses their story as a symbol of how power truly functions in the music world. It's not just about who makes hits, it's about who controls the narrative, who has access to information, and who knows how to weaponize it. In this world, she says, truth is never free. Those who speak it are punished, and those who control it rule everything. By the end of Jaguar's account, the theme is clear. Exposure is the industry's most feared weapon. 50 Cent's warning to Jim Jones wasn't about ego wit, was about reminding everyone that no one is untouchable. Jaguar believes that's why the industry fears people like Herbie, because once the truth starts leaking, the illusion of control begins to collapse. She says Jim's downfall should serve as a lesson to anyone who thinks loyalty or success can protect them. They'll cheer for you, she said, until the moment you become inconvenient. The silence surrounding Jim Jones now speaks volumes. He still makes music, still appears in interviews, but the energy is different. The weight of speculation never leaves. Jaguar's version of events suggests that his fear isn't of 50 Cent personal lights, of what 50 represents. It's the ability to turn the spotlight into a weapon. When Jaguar ends her story, there's a lingering sense of warning. She reminds her audience that this isn't just about celebrities or rappers, it's about a system that feeds on silence, manipulation, and fear. In her eyes, 50 Cent's warning didn't just destroy Jim Jones' reputation, it exposed the fragility of fame itself. Because in the end, one truth always remains in a world built on secrets. It only takes one voice to make everything come crashing down. You've heard the story, the warning, the silence, and the slow unraveling of a man who once stood untouchable. Jaguar Wright's revelations about 50 Cent and Jim Jones aren't just another industry feud. They're a glimpse into how power truly operates in the shadows. When 50 Cent spoke, it wasn't just a message to one man, it was a signal to the entire game. No secret stays, buried forever. Jim Jones' downfall, as Jaguar describes it, isn't just about pride or ego. It's about how truth, once whispered, can burn everything built on illusion. Now the question is, how much of what we see in hip-hop is real? How many artists are living behind masks, held in place by contracts, fear, and silence? If Jaguar Wright is right, then this story isn't over, it's only the beginning. The industry has learned to hide its truths in plain sight. And 50 Cent's warning might be the first crack in the armor. So, what do you believe? Is Jim Jones just another casualty of exposure? Or is he a symbol of what happens when the truth finally starts to surface? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because the more people start questioning, the less power the silence holds. Subscribe, share, and stay locked in, because in this world, nothing stays hidden forever. And the next revelation might change everything you thought you knew about fame, loyalty, and survival. Loyalty and survival.